In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to get and set cookies in the browser using JavaScript. So if you just want to examine the cookies that are set for the current domain in your browser, you can simply type in document.cookie, which returns a long string, which is all of the cookies for this domain, and you can see each individual cookie on the Stack Overflow website, with the name being on the left-hand side of an equals operator, and the value of that cookie on the right-hand side. So extracting the value of a particular cookie is a little bit more complicated, and we'll look at that in just a second, but first we'll see how to actually set a new cookie value, which is a lot easier. So if we want to create a new cookie, we simply assign a new string to the document.cookie property. So at first it might look as though we've just replaced all of the cookies that we previously had, but if we examine document.cookie again, you'll see all of the previous cookies are already there, plus the new one that we just added. So although it looks like there's just a string assigned to document.cookie, there's some kind of magic going on in the background, which allows you to assign new cookies in this way. And of course, if we want to update the value of that cookie, we simply assign another string to document.cookie with the same property name on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So what about if we actually want to extract the value from that cookie? You might think that we could do something like this. But because the cookie property is kind of like a string, we can't actually extract the values by using dot notation like we would do with an object. So if you know much about string manipulation in JavaScript, it is going to be a case of simply splitting the string via semicolons, because each cookie is separated by the semicolon as a delimiter. So by using the split function, we've now got an array where each of the items in the array is the cookie that has the cookie name and also the value inside it. So we could go a step further and split each of those strings inside of that array so that we've got the cookie name and its value. So now we've got arrays inside of our array with the cookie names and their values. So we could do some kind of search or index of operation to actually find the cookie name that we're after. But something that might be useful for you is to reduce this array into an entire object, with the properties of the objects to be the names of the cookies, and the values of those properties to be the value of the cookies. So one approach is to use the JavaScript reduce function to do this. And I've just separated all of those function calls onto separate lines so that you can see a bit clearer what's going on. And that reduce function is basically taking an empty object as the accumulator and building it up by using the first value of the array as the key and the second as the value. And just to tidy things up, I've trimmed the white space from the keys so that we don't get any spaces at the start or the beginning of them, and also called the decode URI component on the value so that those encoded %value characters are represented by actual text. So if we run this now, oops, and I just put a colon instead of a semicolon on the end of the reduce function there, you can see that when we actually run that, we get all of the cookie names as properties in our object. So if we were to save that to a variable, we can then use it like an object and just call the dot notation or the bracket notation to get the values of the cookies by name. So there you have it. Setting cookies is pretty easy. We just need to assign a new value to document.cookie. But if you actually want to retrieve those values using JavaScript, you're going to need to actually work with a string and split it by semicolons and then do some work to actually get the value that you're after. I'll put a link for the code to this in the description so that you can use that code to get your cookie string into an object if you want to easily retrieve your cookies via name.